How would you like to be remembered?
As a winner.
When it comes to the greatest F1 drivers of all time, two names always stand out: Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. Both shaped the sport in extraordinary ways, but their paths only crossed for a few short years. It's fascinating to think about what could have happened if they had competed head-to-head for the title of the best. As we look back at their careers, their stats, and the challenges they faced, it's clear that while Schumacher set numerous records, Senna's legacy remains just as powerful. Let's take a closer look at their remarkable journeys and what made each of them a legend in their own right. When Michael Schumacher began his F1 career in the early 1990s, Ayrton Senna was already becoming a household name and a racing legend. Their careers only overlapped for a few years, but during that time, it looked like both drivers might eventually compete for the title of the greatest F1 driver in history. They raced against each other from Schumacher's debut in 1991 until Senna's tragic death at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix. Although Schumacher and Senna were on track together for a few seasons, they never really battled it out for the World Drivers' Championship. The 1994 season seemed like it could be the year they'd fight for the title, but sadly, Senna's fatal crash at Imola on May 1, 1994, cut that possibility short. The loss of Senna was a devastating moment for the sport and the racing world as a whole. If Ayrton Senna had survived and retired on his own terms, his stats might have looked very similar to Michael Schumacher's. Senna was a fierce competitor who could have taken wins and titles from the German legend. Senna's career featured 41 wins from 161 races, along with 80 podium finishes and 65 pole positions, setting a record for pole positions that lasted until 2006. At the time of his death, his 41 victories ranked second all-time. He won 3 Formula One World Championships, securing titles in 1988, 1990, and 1991, all while driving for Toleman, Lotus, McLaren, and Williams. Of his 41 wins, 35 came with McLaren, while 6 were with Lotus. Michael Schumacher, on the other hand, finished his career with 91 wins, 68 pole positions, and 155 podiums, records that stood until his retirement. He raced for Jordan, Benetton, Ferrari, and Mercedes, capturing 7 world championships. Schumacher's first 2 titles came with Benetton in 1994 and 1995. Then he dominated with Ferrari from 2000 to 2004. Schumacher started his career while Senna was still in his prime, and it's worth noting that many cars didn't have semi-automatic transmissions back then. As the years passed, semi-automatic gearboxes became the norm, giving drivers a significant edge with smoother, faster gear shifts. When you compare their careers overall, Schumacher competed in 308 races, while Senna raced in just 161. Although Schumacher's win rate of 29.39% is slightly higher than Senna's 25.47%, Senna was much better at grabbing pole positions, holding a 10% higher pole percentage. Their podium finishes are about the same when looked at from a percentage perspective. In terms of records, Schumacher holds the most wins in F1 history, the most wins in a single season, the most consecutive seasons with a win, the fastest laps, the most podium finishes, and the most world championships. Senna, though, has some notable records too, including the most consecutive pole positions and the most races led from start to finish. But considering that Senna only raced in 161 events compared to Schumacher's 306, it's understandable why Schumacher holds more records. Ultimately, while Schumacher's list of achievements is longer, both drivers were legends in their own right, with each leaving a unique mark on the sport. In 1994, fully automatic transmissions were banned in Formula One, but the technology made a return between 2001 and 2004, just in time for Michael Schumacher's dominant years with Ferrari. Around the same time, active suspensions and traction control began to take shape in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Both of these technologies were eventually banned, but traction control came back in 2001, right when Schumacher was ruling the track with Ferrari. When it comes to who's the greatest F1 driver, both Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher have strong cases. However, what really matters is respecting the incredible achievements of both men and acknowledging the unique paths they took to build their legendary careers. It's true that Schumacher often set the fastest lap times, but it's also fair to point out that Senna dealt with a much higher rate of technical failures throughout his career. When you look at the stats, there's no clear winner between them. Both had different strengths and weaknesses and faced different challenges during their careers, which is exactly why comparing just the numbers doesn't paint a full picture of who was the better driver. In 1989, F1 introduced a new V8 engine, the HB, which powered several drivers to victory. Schumacher took his first F1 win at the 1992 Belgian Grand Prix, while Senna won 5 races with the HB in 1993. His last victory came at the Australian Grand Prix that same year. Whether you choose Ayrton Senna or Michael Schumacher as the better driver, one thing is certain: both are legends of the sport, and they remain two of the best to ever race in Formula One. Though Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher raced in the same era, the few years that separated them made all the difference. When Senna was rising through the ranks, he had to face some of the toughest competitors in the sport, drivers like Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell. Let's not forget that Prost came incredibly close to Senna's record for the most consecutive pole positions. Prost managed 7 in a row, just one shy of Senna's 8. He also shares second place with Senna for the highest percentage of pole positions in a season, both hitting 81.25%. Prost is in the top 5 for total wins, pole positions, fastest laps, podium finishes, and laps led. On top of that, Senna had to compete against Nigel Mansell, another highly successful and respected driver. Mansell holds the record for the most wins by a British driver and is the only one in history to hold both the F1 World Championship and the kart title at the same time. Many people argue that Senna's career was tougher because he was surrounded by so many incredibly talented drivers. Senna also raced alongside legends like Niki Lauda, Keke Rosberg, and Nelson Piquet, all of whom were huge names in the sport. For many, this was the golden age of Formula One racing, and Senna was in the thick of it, racing in what many consider the most competitive era in the sport's history. Schumacher's time at Ferrari was marked by dominance, but it also came with its fair share of controversy. Fans of Senna often argue that Schumacher had it easier compared to his rival. They say that at Ferrari, Schumacher was treated like the golden boy, well supported not only by the powerful people at Ferrari who had a major influence on the sport, but also by his teammates. These teammates weren't just racing alongside him, they were also there to protect him, making sure he could perform at his best without distractions. A prime example of this came in 2002 at the Austrian Grand Prix. Schumacher's teammate, Rubens Barrichello, was ordered to let Schumacher pass him so that he could win the race and extend his winning streak. This moment became infamous, as it was seen by many as an unfair and controversial move, one that tainted the victory. For every achievement you can praise Schumacher for, there's a similar accomplishment you can highlight about Senna, and vice versa. Ultimately, both are different kinds of drivers with their own strengths and legacies. While Schumacher may have more records to his name, Senna raced in a much tougher and more competitive environment and still managed to come out on top. In the end, when you compare Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher, it's clear that both were legends, but they had different approaches to racing. Senna was driven by his heart, putting everything into every race, while Schumacher was all about using his head, strategic and focused on the bigger picture. Both were incredibly talented, but in different ways. Senna was known for his raw, natural gift for racing, thriving in an era when competition was fierce and the cars were much harder to handle. Schumacher, on the other hand, was more technical, and his years at Ferrari were marked by smart strategies and dominance that made him one of the greatest. Both men left a massive mark on the sport, and their careers continue to inspire fans around the world. But what if Schumacher had been in Senna's position, racing in his era without the support of Ferrari? Could he have achieved the same kind of success? It's an interesting thought. So, who do you think was the better driver, Senna or Schumacher? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for sticking with us through this video. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us keep making great informative content just for you.